Mr. David Defazio, guest of honor. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself first? For those of us who obviously had the pleasure, we know a little bit about your origin story, but for some of maybe the people who aren't as familiar with you and with Wyoming whiskey, why don't you give us a little insight into your life?
Well, I live in the great state of Wyoming, and I have been driving around the last couple of days doing some sales now that our state has opened back up for the most part. I've lived in Jackson, Wyoming for 25 years, I think, consistently now. I came out right after college and went back to law school. Wow, my hair looks great today. Went back to law school in DC, and then ended up meeting Brad and Kate Mead, who are my current Wyoming whiskey partners. I'm also a lawyer, and I had met Kate one morning with one of her clients, and I ended up working in their law firm for a few years. It completely hijacked my original plan of moving to San Francisco and taking a run at a legal career there. But I'm very happy that the hijack happened in Jackson, and it's been a great place to live. Love the outdoors, love fishing, love skiing, love hunting, love all things rock climbing when I used to do more of that. And like I said, now the weather's finally turned back nice. It snowed last week, and now I'm here in Sheridan, Wyoming, and it's 87 degrees and beautiful, and my dog has finally calmed down, so all's good in the world.
I feel that. So jumping back a little bit, when you met, because you met Kate Mead, and for those of the viewers that don't know, Kate and Brad Mead are also the co-founders of Wyoming Whiskey. You met Kate in New York, right?
Nope, I met her in Jackson, actually.
Okay.
She's from Vermont, though, and we went to the same college in Vermont.
Yeah.
She's a few years older than I am, but so we never shared any classes or anything. But it was just really interesting when I walked into her office that morning, and she asked me, just idle chatter, where'd you go to college? I said, St. Lawrence University. And she looked at me kind of strange. I was like, oh, it's this small liberal arts school in upstate New York. She goes, I know where it is. That's where I went. And it was just that immediate connection that we had. And then obviously she introduced me to her husband, Brad, who co-managed the law firm. And then I went out on my own and legally, and they called me years later and said, hey, let's make bourbon.
What were you thinking in that moment?
I thought Brad was pulling my leg. And so I laughed right in his face. I was like, yeah, right. And he said, he didn't laugh. And I looked at Kate, she didn't laugh. I was like, well, how the hell do you make bourbon? And he's like, that's for you to figure out. And that's when my head twisted right off my shoulders and just, what do I do? And that's how it all started.
That's kind of got to be both a huge compliment and a huge responsibility at the same time. I think if they said that to me, I'd be like, A, thank you for thinking that I could pull that off. And B, why did you choose me? What were you thinking?
I love a challenge. I love new things, and I trust the Meads. They're like a second family. So it was really fantastic to have them show that trust in me. And the next thing was, how the heck do I do this? And, we ended up going to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and we ended up meeting Max Shapiro from Heaven Hill, who's a great guy. He spent 45 minutes trying to tell us not to do it. And we probably should have listened to him because, as he said, it's been 3 times as hard, it's taken 3 times as long, and it's cost at least 3 times as much. So, that's how we got going on it. And it's been a challenge every day. I like to say I've stepped on every rake in the field, but I've never stepped on the same rake twice. And, we learn as we go. And here we are.
I think it was from Sam Mead, a little bit ago. I read an article, a few months ago, and he was saying, I'm pretty sure it was either Sam Mead or you that they were quoting, but I remember it saying that, you guys actually didn't know of all the shortcuts that you can take in producing whiskey at the time when you guys started 10 years ago, and that almost financially you wish you would have, but every step of the way you kind of took the harder, longer route, and now it's paid off. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So Brad Mead is a 4th generation cattle rancher, very much Wyoming guy, right? For 4 generations, his great-grandfather homesteaded there right around the turn of the last century. Brad's grandfather was a 2-term U.S. senator and governor of Wyoming. And when this all got started, Brad said, I don't want this to be a hobby. This needs to be a money-making endeavor. And if it's not, then we won't do it. But he said, we can't cut any corners. My family is so woven into the fabric of the state. Those are my words. I should say his family is so woven into the state. He would never use those words. that they can't do, we couldn't do anything that would lead to any type of embarrassment, or to the contrary. You should be proud of everything that we do and how we do it. There was grant money out there that was available. And I asked him, I said, can we apply for this? He goes, no. I go, why? He goes, because my brother's the governor. And I'm like, okay, get it. So this is how this is going to be. You know, it's like the opposite of corruption. Nobody's out, you know, the Meade family. Yeah, it's very different out here than Illinois or New York or any major city, really. So he just said, no, you can't have even an image of impropriety. And so even if it was proper, I mean, the grant money was available. And if we earned it, people would still say, oh, it's because the Meade's brother is the governor. So we had to stay away from all that.